Wednesday was a late night, what with deacons, John's delayed train, missile attacks on Ukraine. We've been watching for weeks, months, for some perhaps even years, with a blend of growing concern and tempered disbelief that Putin, even Putin, would actually invade. If you watched the early coverage late last Wednesday night, you saw expert after expert answering question after question from news anchors trying hard to make sense out of the seemingly senseless. The experts didn't even bother to silence their cell phones or wait to read their texts. They couldn't. They shouldn't. In the wake of this newly launched chaos, information felt like the only lifeline. John said that TikTok blew up with posts in real time from folks on the ground. Ukrainian youth didn't filter or fact-checked videos of their surroundings. They simply showed what they saw around them. Terror. We are horrified on their behalf and appalled to think that this could happen. And sadly, so very sadly, I have to wonder why we're surprised. In July 2021, the European Commission invited representatives from Kyiv to join EU industrial alliances on batteries and raw materials, with a view to develop an entire value chain of the extraction, refining, and recycling of minerals in Ukraine to supply the EU markets. Europe is heavily dependent on imports of key raw materials, with China providing 98% of the EU's supply of rare earth elements, a key component for magnets used in electric car batteries, smartphones, and wind turbines. The EU's list of critical raw materials, updated in September of 2020, includes 30 materials, including rare earths, bauxite, lithium, and titanium. There are 30 of them. And 21 of these critical raw materials are in the Ukraine, which is also extracting 117 out of 120 globally used materials. Senior EU Commissioner Marcos Savocek explained, we're talking about lithium, cobalt, manganese, rare earths, all of them are in Ukraine. I learned that while trying to fact check a social media post that cited the following. Ukraine is the largest country by area in Europe and has a population of over 40 million people. Ukraine ranks first in Europe in proven recoverable reserves of uranium ore, second in Europe and 10th in the world in terms of titanium ore reserves, second in the world in terms of explored reserves of manganese ores, iron ore reserves, and mercury reserves, third in Europe in shale gas reserves, fourth in the world by value of natural resource, and seventh in the world for coal reserves. Ukraine is an important agricultural country, first in Europe in terms of arable land area, third in the world by area in black soil, which is 25% of the world's volume. First in the world for sunflower and sunflower oil. Second for barley production. Third for corn. Fourth for potatoes. Fifth for rye and bee production. Eighth for wheat exports. Ninth for chicken eggs. 16th for cheese exports. And this country of 40 million people can meet the food needs of over 600 million people. Ukraine is also an important industrialized country. First in Europe for ammonia production, second for the largest natural gas pipeline, the world's fourth longest. Third in Europe and eighth in the world in terms of installed capacity of nuclear power plants. The list goes on and on and on. You get the idea. Frankly, I stopped cross-referencing the details after hitting the bit about rare earths. Russia has its own lesser and far less developed reserves and lacks the capacity to either mine or refine them. But China has it. And of course, despite its historic alliance with the former Soviet Union, Ukraine has developed its present-day economic and political standing in Europe and the world as a free-standing democracy. Arguing an invasion to denazify another sovereign state falls flat on the ears of the Ukrainian people and those who recognize Ukraine's democratically elected president, Vladimir Zelensky, who is Jewish. According to the Encyclopedia of the National Geographic Society, nations go to war if the benefits of war are deemed to outweigh the disadvantages, and if there is a sense that there is not another mutually agreeable solution. It goes on to say that in Western tradition, there is a sense that the reasons for war must be just. This idea dates back to ancient times, but is most clearly traced to the writings of St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas. They attempted to justify war and reconcile it with the Christian belief that taking human life is wrong. To Aquinas, a war must be just in both the reasons for going to war and how the war is fought. Reasons for going to war are just if first, war is declared by an appropriate authority. Second, the war is waged for a just cause. Third, the war is waged for just intentions. An appropriate authority is a proper governing authority. A just cause may include self-defense or response to injustice. Just intentions mean that it must not be fought for self-interest, but for justice or the common good. In addition, there must be a reasonable chance of success. The good that will be achieved must outweigh the bad. And finally, war must be the last resort. Of course, there's another explanation for going to war. Pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, sloth. Of the 7 deadly sins, theologians And philosophers reserve a special place for pride. The sages say lust, envy, anger, greed, gluttony, and sloth are all bad. But pride is the deadliest of all, the root of all evil, and the beginning of sin. So here we stand on this Transfiguration Sunday, on the top of a mountain with our own experts, leaning into the light of their insight and perspective, trusting them to keep their eyes and their ears attuned to the trouble that awaits. One rejected his own privilege, suffered at the hands of both enemies and friends, and in time led his people from slavery toward a destiny they would need to carve out for themselves. Another lived for a time as a displaced refugee, running for his life because he stood up for what he believed and spoke the truth to power. And the third, he would forfeit his life for the sake of his people, all the while pouring himself wholly and fully into helping them find a still more excellent way. Moses, Elijah, Jesus. I wonder what they're saying today. You pray with me? God, in the midst of the words and the speculation and the cautions and the caveats and the sanctions, the anger and the arguments and the fear, we are at a loss. There is a vacuum in our world that we need you to fill. There are so many moving parts and implications, opportunities, and systemic forces that exceed our capacity to even grasp, much less impact. And yet, we are not silent. We are not inattentive. And we are not without obligation to find a place to stand, perhaps to act, at least to understand, and certainly to care. Help us and guide us and lead us. Hear us in this time of silent prayer. God of compassion, understanding, and vision. When Jesus taught us to pray this simple prayer together, he didn't do it simply because he knew that our needs would easily be met, but rather he knew that in places of occupation, places of oppression, places of want, and places of need, We are best when we stand together and ask for the blessings you extend. Hear us now as we pray together the prayer he taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.